we are going to be taking a look at my 3 biggest storylines for the Detroit Lions heading into training camp. So looking at the Detroit Lions, there are obviously plenty of storylines to look at, and I decided to take a look at my 3 biggest ones. Now, maybe at this time they're my biggest, and this could definitely change. There's a lot of storylines to go around, but with that being said, I tried to come up with 3 that I thought were very good. So let's start this list off. Coming in at number 3, the 3rd biggest storyline that we should take a look at is Damon Harrison and Darius and their contracts. Now, they actually haven't got the new contracts yet, but they both said today, or maybe it was today and yesterday, I don't know. In the last 24 hours, I believe, they have both said that, hey, we are going to report to training camp. We're going to be there. Everything's going to be all good. And that was awesome. That's great news for Detroit Lions fans. It's great news for the NFL because these are 2 really great players, and we don't want to see any really issues there. We have one of the best defensive line players in the football, the best run stopper in football, and we have one of the top corners in football. So it's good that both of these guys are good to go. They're going to show up to camp. This is something that some of us were kind of worried about, like, hey, they're not going to show up to camp because they're with their new contracts. We need these guys to succeed in 2019, which I agree with. But now they're saying, okay, we're going to show up to camp, and that's really good as a Detroit Lions fan. So with that being said, I am kind of interested in seeing how that contract works out. Now, both of these guys actually have 2 years remaining on their contract deals currently. So with that being said, we don't know when they're going to get their new contracts. We just know that they are going to be showing up to training camp, which could be a really good move for both of these guys because that could definitely help their chances to get a contract showing like, hey, I'm loyal. I'm going to be at training camp when I have to be. I just want my contract. They're not going to be like, no, we're not showing up to anything unless you give me my money, because then at that point, you're kind of in positions like, okay, if I give him my money, that's the only way I get them to play. But if I don't give them my money, then they won't play for me. Like, I don't know how much I can trust these guys. So it's good that they're showing up. But that's my 3rd biggest storyline. Now, number 2 is another very big one. And obviously, we got rid of Jim Bob Cooter, which I think a lot of people were happy about. And we decided to bring in a guy named Darrell Bevell. Now, who is Darrell Bevell, right? We all know who Darrell Bevell is at this point. I hope so, as Detroit Lions fans. But if you don't, Darrell Bevell was the guy that bounced around all over the league, played offensive coordinator for a lot of teams in the NFL, a lot of really good players, guys like Brett Favre, Russell Wilson, and now he's with the Detroit Lions. And I'm really curious to see how this offense runs under Darrell Bevell. Now, we know some of the scheme things, like, hey, they're going to run the ball more, they're going to utilize these tight ends, but I'm very interested to see not necessarily just how Darrell Bevell adjusts the offense and a new play style, but how Matthew Stafford reacts to what Darrell Bevell is going to do. Matthew Stafford's never really played in this type of offense before. He's always been in that gunslinging type of mode. Like, hey, I need to throw 40 touchdowns in a season. I need to have 5,000 passing yards. Maybe not 5,000, but I got to throw the ball a lot. We're going to be in the shotgun 68% of the time, and we're going to win the game that way. We're not going to win the game with me handing the ball off more than I throw it. Like, that's crazy talk. With that being said, we kind of adjusted to that last season. Now that's going to take full overdrive in 2019 with Darrell Bevell. So I'm interested to see and how Matthew Stafford reacts to that. Now, maybe at first he'll be like, oh, this is kind of weird not throwing the ball all the time. But I think he will start to like it as the season goes on. Like, man, I'm not worn out. I'm not tired of throwing the ball all the time because that's all I have to do. I can rely on these guys when it's cold weather. I can just give it to my running backs and they go yards. And that's super important. So it's going to be nice to have these running backs and have a really good running game in 2019. That's my 2nd biggest storyline. And finally, coming in at number 1 spot is, you could say, position battles. You know, like, obviously position battles are always interesting, right? You got the cornerbacks, you got the safeties, whatever it may be. But I'm specifically looking at that offensive line. This is a big storyline, right? Is it going to succeed? Is it not going to succeed? And I think this is kind of an underrated storyline, to be honest. I don't think a lot of people talk about this because you usually don't want to talk about teams like, hey, let's look at their offensive line. Like, no, you want to say, let's look at Antonio Brown. Let's look at Julio Jones. No, let's look at their offensive line. Like, no, we don't care about that. But with the Detroit Lions, we should care about that. The offensive line is going to be super important in 2019 to our success offensively and even defensively, because if we can't do anything offensively, it's going to hurt our defense. Now, offensively, we have to have an offensive line that can help in pass protection and run blocking and everything along those matters, while also not getting in trouble with dumb flags and penalties that hurt our team. Our offensive line may be the most important part of our team going into 2019. You could honestly make that argument. With that being said, I think this is a great storyline. I'm very interested to see how this offensive line works. Obviously, we know we are going to have some moving pieces. Guys like Frank Ragnow moving from that guard position to the center position. Graham Glasgow then from the center to the guard position. We have an open guard spot. Then we have Taylor Decker and Rick Wagner in that guard spot. We don't know who that's going to be right now, but I believe it's going to be Kenny Wiggins. So with that being said, I think that's probably the biggest storyline you could say into training camp, right? The one thing we have to watch for is that offensive line. I think it's kind of an underrated one. Anyways, let me hear your guys' storylines in the comments below. If you guys want me to do more of these videos where I talk about, you know, the biggest things that we should take a look at, the biggest storylines, I definitely can. Anyways, thank you guys for the support. You guys have been absolutely amazing. Forever. Like, you guys have always been amazing, but you guys have been absolutely amazing while I'm not having my great background, but you guys are still supporting, and that's awesome. So thank you, Prep, for watching, and I'm out.